Yo, what's going on, guys? This is going to be the best effing podcast you've ever heard about water and why you need to drink enough of it. All right. And I'm going to start off by saying one of the clients that I worked with a few years ago, she was drinking about 9 or 10 Diet Dr. Peppers a day. And all we did was switch out her Dr. Peppers for water. And she lost like 10 or 20 pounds in a month just because we switched out the Diet Dr. Peppers to water. And so that's just one of the little things that you need to understand, that water is an incredible resource that you should integrate into your diet consistently. I have this guy, Fly Bodies. What's up? This is the Bodies in Business podcast. My name is Austin. And in today's topic, it's about hydration. Okay. So first, we're going to talk about how to test if you're hydrated. Then we're going to talk about how much water you actually need. And then we're going to talk about why hydration matters for your brain and just performance overall. We're going to talk about this is where I actually learned something new, the carbohydrate myth when it comes to hydration. So if you want to jump ahead to that, you might want to do that. And then we're going to wrap it up with the things that we learned. Some quick hitters here, just so you know, your body, the human body, is about 55 to 60% water. The brain and the heart are about 75% water. Okay. That's a lot of water. So that's why we need to stay hydrated, because those things we want to work optimally. So we got to drink water, guys. We lose about 2 to 3 liters of fluid every day. No one knows what liters are. So that comes out to about 67 to 100 fluid ounces. Okay. 2 to 3 liters equals 67 to 102 fluid ounces. And we lose that just from breathing, sweating, and normal body functions on a daily basis. So that's how much water we use on a daily basis, depending on how, big, small, wide, skinny you are. But that's just good to know. And then that's going to tie into why it's recommended for you to drink about 80 ounces of water in the first 10 hours of your day. I know that's very specific. We'll get into that. And then you need to know that even mild hydration impacts thinking and energy. So I'll tell you right now, I'm hydrated as a goose right now. Geese are pretty hydrated animals, maybe, but I keep my water with me all the time because I know I get a little thirsty. And even when I hear the word water, I think, man, I need to take a quick sip. Take a quick sip of water if you've got some. Settle in and just know that 2 billion people on the planet lack safe drinking water, lack access to safe drinking water, which is about 25% of the population in the world. So it's just like one of those things where for me, I think about, man, we are so fortunate. I am so fortunate as an American, as a person that lives in Los Angeles, that I have access to clean drinking water, and I don't need to just poo-poo having access to clean drinking water. I need to say, man, this is incredible. I'm going to use it. My brain, my body needs it. Let's jump in. Okay, guys. So the first thing I want to say is survival times. I thought this was interesting. It's like, how long would you survive without water? Well, without water, you'd survive around 3 to 5 days, roughly, on average. That's pretty crazy, because oxygen is lacking oxygen. It's 3 to 6 minutes. Then water is the next thing. Water, if you don't have water in 3 to 5 days, you're a goner. And then sleep is 10 to 14 days, and food is actually 30 to 70 days. So which makes me understand, it makes me truly appreciate that water is so important, and our cells are just in like all water almost. Our brain, our body, it's a lot of water. And we'll jump into a few things of how to test your hydration levels. And so that's, I think, knowing if you're hydrated or not is kind of hard to do unless one day maybe we'll have like our watches telling us if we're hydrated or not. But the things you can count on are, if you're thirsty, probably dehydrated. You can see your urine color. I think urine color is probably the easiest way to test if you're hydrated or not. And we'll get into how to see, or how to understand if you are hydrated or not according to your urine color. And then this is one of the things that I learned in CST, combat survival training, when I was at the Air Force Academy. Irritation is the first sign of dehydration. Okay, so if you're feeling a little irritated, take a sip of water. Maybe it'll cure your irritation. But I learned that we were out in the wilderness, or maybe it was during class. I don't know. We were learning about going out in the wilderness, and they said the first sign of dehydration is irritation. And so when you think about that, you're like, man, maybe I do get a little irritated when I'm thirsty or I haven't had water in a while. And so that's just something to be aware of. If you're feeling a little on edge, maybe drink 8 ounces of water, 16 ounces of water. See what that does to your overall mood. So that's just a little tidbit there. So let's jump into, I'm not going to get too sciencey with this, but I want to talk to you just right off the bat. Hydration scale. Clear/pale color of pee, of urine, a little TMI, clear or pale straw color, you're good. That means you're hydrated. If it's a dark yellow, you should probably drink some water, right away. If it's an amber color, if it's getting towards the brown/dark yellow, that means you're very dehydrated. And then if it's brown or like crude oil color, there's a problem. You need water immediately. Okay. I don't know. I've never heard of anybody getting to that far, but if you're in the desert and you're lacking water, it might get that far. Oof. That gives me the willies thinking about being in the desert without water and then you're peeing brown. That's not good. Anyways, so this is where I was like, why does your urine color turn colors to let you know that you are dehydrated? Well, there's this stuff called urochrome. All right. It's the yellow color in your urine comes from a pigment called urochrome. If you like saying urochrome, keep saying it. Urochrome is created when your body breaks down old red blood cells. Every day, your body replaces millions of red blood cells, and part of the recycling process, produces waste products, one of them being urochrome. Think of urochrome as normal metabolic trash our body needs to remove. And it made me think of this as like, okay, so we have to drink water in order to excrete the red blood cells, the old red blood cells in our body, so our body's getting out the waste that it needs. You have those old red blood cells in your body. You need to get rid of those so you can make new red blood cells and you don't build up those old red blood cells. It also made me think of the glymphatic system in our brain when we go to sleep that actually clears out a bunch of metabolic waste, some toxic proteins, and all this other stuff in your brain when you go to sleep, because your body actually needs to get the waste out when you're sleeping so that you don't build up things like beta amyloid, which is a major waste product. It's a protein linked to Alzheimer's, they think, and it accumulates over time. So if you're not getting great sleep, your beta amyloid gets in your brain and it's all not great things. Anyways, we'll get back to waters. Once again, clear and straw color, good. You're hydrated. Dark yellow, drink some water. Amber color, you're pretty dehydrated. And then if it's brown, man, you need to probably go to the hospital. All right. Some of the caveats to this is some people take vitamins. And so your vitamin could be like a neon green color. And that's a lot of B vitamins in your urine. That means you're excreting some B vitamins. And then certain foods and meds will change your color as well. Okay. If you haven't urinated in 6+ hours, you're probably dehydrated. So that's something to be aware of. I know it's a pain in the butt, something to have to get up all the time and go use the bathroom, but that means you're hydrated, right? If you're urinating every 1 to 2 hours, that's a good rule of thumb. Urine color isn't random. It's your kidneys telling you how much water they have had available to dilute your body's waste. Okay. And then the last thing I'll say is clear urine isn't the goal. Pale straw color is the goal. Your urine is basically your body's hydration dashboard. So your urine is a great way to see if you're hydrated or not. All right. How much water do you actually need? I watched an Andrew Huberman little clip, and he said that you need about 80 ounces of water in the first 10 hours you're awake. So it's about 8 ounces per hour. And that doesn't mean you have to drink 8 ounces of water per hour to stay hydrated. It just roughly means on average, you need about 80 ounces of water. And the reason that makes sense is because on average, we burn about 60 to 100 ounces of water a day with our normal biological processes, breathing, sleeping, all these things, sweating. We're burning around 60 to 100 ounces of water. So 80 ounces of water makes sense when we're awake because, that's roughly the average. But if you're working out, then you probably need to drink a little more. And there's this thing called the Galpin equation from Andy Galpin. He's a Stanford instructor and really into fitness. And he said, one way to understand how much water you need to drink if you're working out is you take your body weight and you divide it by 30. And then that's the amount of ounces you should drink every 15 to 20 minutes of exercise. So I'll do it. Okay. I weigh, let's say 180 pounds just to make it simple. If I divide that by 30, that's 6 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes I'm exercising. So if I exercise for an hour, that's roughly like 18 to 24 ounces of water that I burn that I need to replenish myself. All right. So that's the Galpin equation. Kind of helpful. Use that if you want. Why hydration matters for the brain and performance? Well, a dehydrated brain works harder than a hydrated brain. It's just your body actually has to work more if you're dehydrated. Temporary brain shrinkage occurs, reduced focus, mood, decision-making, increased fatigue. Sometimes we're just a little dehydrated during the day, either around midday in the afternoon or something like that. So just go grab a sip of water, go grab a glass of water. Nice cold glass of water is great. You don't need the 5-hour energy all the time to keep you going in the afternoon. Sometimes maybe you just need a glass of water, and it takes a little while to maybe kick in. But if you're feeling a little sluggish, go grab some water, and it might give you that kick you need, that so you don't have to go get that 4th, 5th glass of coffee. Dehydration doesn't make you thirsty. It makes everything else harder. Great quote. Love that quote. Now we're getting into something, the carbohydrate myth in hydration. This is what I found very interesting because I've, seen in the past probably 5 to 15 years, I know that's a long time frame, carbohydrates have really been demonized in the nutrition world, in the overall health world, and everybody's like, carbohydrates are terrible. Well, carbohydrates aren't terrible. It's the type of carbohydrates you're eating and drinking, and how much you're drinking and eating matters. So it's very interesting because Layne, Dr. Layne Norton, I think that's his name, Dr. Layne Norton, did a podcast or a little video where he broke down why you probably want to have a little carbohydrate and sodium in your water in order to rehydrate yourself. And they've done studies to show that having some carbohydrate in various liquids when you hydrate is actually helping you get more hydrated than just not having any carbohydrate at all. And I know a lot of people get very nervous and scared about having too much carbohydrate, but the optimal amount, Dr. Layne Norton says, is 16 grams of carbs per liter, or 8 grams per 16 ounces. Okay. That's a good rough, if you're really not wanting to add a lot of carbohydrate to your liquids to rehydrate, that's only like 30 calories, right? And that's not a lot of calories at all when you're talking in the grand scheme of calories. 8 grams of carbohydrate is only 30 calories. So that's kind of cool because I'm going to start monitoring that a little more. Because for me, I've stayed away from Gatorade a lot. I've stayed away from really sugary drinks because of the carbohydrate load. But now that I know that I can have a certain amount of carbohydrate in my drink that actually is helpful, and it's not just the sodium and potassium you need, the carbohydrate actually helps your cells retain that water as well. So that's cool to know. So just remember that 8 grams per carbohydrate for every 16 ounces of liquid is kind of a good measurement. And this is a great line is, 0 carbs sounds great for marketing, but biology prefers balance. Okay. Whenever anything says 0 sugar or 0 carbs, man, you're going, oh, like I can drink that, or, that's going to be perfect because I don't have to take in any more calories. But when you're just trying to stay hydrated after like a tough workout, or even just, I haven't drank much liquid throughout the day, 8 grams per 16 ounces of water is a good recommended dose. All right. So we're hitting almost the 15-minute mark. Hopefully you're staying with me. Food counts as 20% of your hydration. So that doesn't mean you just need 80 ounces of liquid. 20% of your hydration can come from foods, but that means you need to eat fruits, vegetables, and whole foods that actually have liquid in them, and not foods that are on, in a bag on a shelf that have been there for like months because they probably don't have much water or liquid in there in general. So that just goes to show, like, apples, oranges, cucumbers, watermelon, avocado, like all these things are whole foods and have a lot of hydration in it. Just know that you can get some of your hydration from foods. Okay. I'll go back to let's just go through the closing remarks here. Closing message is, you need to look at your urine color. I'm going to take a deep breath here and I'm going to slow down. Nice, sexy radio voice so I can take it all in. And I want to tell you, since I'm calming down here, because I get going and I just start ripping these things off. And sometimes I got to take a beat and say, you know what? Calm yourself. All right. Let's go through these things nice and calmly. All right. The closing message is, one of the best ways to tell if you're one of the best ways to tell if you're hydrated is your urine color. All right. If your urine is a light yellow or just a clear color, that's a pretty good indicator that you're hydrated. If it's a darker color, like a brown or amber color, you are definitely dehydrated and you need to drink water. Baseline hydration for the day is about 80 ounces. And that's because we burn about 60 to 100 ounces throughout the day just from normal activity and bodily function. Okay, so 80 ounces. And another thing is in the first 10 hours, you don't want to just drink all your water right before you go to bed, or you're going to be getting up at night using the bathroom a lot. Okay. Then dehydration, a dehydrated brain works harder than a hydrated brain. Remember that. Okay. Research shows that hydration improves when we drink sodium and a small amount of carbohydrates. That's what research shows. You don't just have to stay with water. You can drink a small amount of sodium and a small amount of carbohydrates with your water, and that's very helpful to stay hydrated. Last thing is about 20% of our hydration comes from food. If you're eating whole foods, okay? If you're eating whole foods, and make sure that's the case. And the last thing I will say is hydration is one of the fastest ways to improve energy, focus, recovery, and mood, and it costs almost nothing. If you live in America, you get so much water for free. And I know some people are some water snobs out there, so I get it. But gosh, we are so lucky to have access to clean drinking water. I know some people in other countries don't have that access. And if you can find ways to get clean drinking water and drink on a consistent basis, it's the best. And what I'll say is this is probably one of the most overlooked health benefits because it doesn't move the needle like dramatically, in a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But there are so many benefits that come from just drinking water, like better skin, your mood, your focus. You feel more full throughout the day. Like that's one thing that I think people don't realize is a lot of times your hunger is actually you're thirsty or you're just dehydrated. So if you drink water, you're actually going to fill up those sensors in your stomach and it's going to make you feel more full. Your cells will like you for it. That's all I got, guys. Hopefully that's helpful. The carbohydrate thing was really helpful for me. So I hope you kind of adhere to that and find out more. I know there's some products out there like Liquid IV or Element or a bunch of different products that have some sodium and maybe some carbohydrate that can be helpful to take on the go, little packets. And then I'm actually going to play around with my own little sugar and sodium and see how that works for me because I'm like 8 grams. I can measure that out. I can see what's going on. And maybe it's a little cheaper to do it that way too. So that's all I got, guys. I hope you enjoy. Hopefully that was the best effing water podcast you've ever heard. If it is, pass it on to your friends. If you need any help in the health and wellness department, I'm happy to help you. And if you've made it this far, thanks for taking the time to listen about hydration. If you have any comments, critiques, feedback, I love to hear them. And yeah, that's all I got, guys. Get after it. Go drink some water.